Well, hello, and hello. So, Ronnie, there is a wicked. See that product placement there. There's a wicked rumor going around that we're still alive. So we thought we'd
Yeah,
better.
we'll have to squash that, won't we?
Yeah. But well,
These are just these holograms of ourselves that we left behind
yes,
for people to
squash it or
enjoy.
prove it. One of those. So how you doing? We were thinking we've not done this for years and decades and months and
It's been 2 or 3 months since we last did it. I think we've both been so busy with other things that we kind of haven't got round to it. But I think it's only because the special occasion of 80 years of the Vegan Society and the 80 years of veganism, I suppose, in a sense, that's just gone, has prompted this, hasn't it?
Yeah. So what's the idea? We're going to look back in order to look forward, I suppose, are we?
I think we can look back a bit. Yes, yeah. I think that's important. But I think the looking forward bit is probably the main thing to focus on.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I've got the Kim Stallwood article, and he looks back and then looks forward. So we could maybe start with that. I don't know, but that might be quite interesting. But we need to do a bit of housekeeping first, which is the usual thing. That this is going out to 3 platforms, streamed to 3 places. My Facebook, the Vegan Review Facebook, and my YouTube channel. So it's my YouTube channel. That's where the best chat is. We can see your comments that you make on Facebook. You won't be able to see anybody if they reply to you, though. That's the limitation of that. And actually, I don't think I ever get any engagement on the Vegan Review channel, Ronnie, even though I think it's still got about 25,000 people on it. Just it seems to be very moribund. So what we should try and do maybe is switch it to your YouTube channel, you know, as a third stream. That might be good.
We could do, yeah, if it's possible to do that. Yeah,
it might be. We'll have to look at that. And then this thing as well. Comment away, people. We're opposed to the idea of charging people to talk to us. You know, vegans shouldn't be doing that to each other. So there's that as well. It's a habit that I really dislike, that one, but there you go. Okay, so we'll put up the maybe put up this then. Okay, so this is Kim Stallwood. Now, Kim Stallwood, a long time vegan, been vegan since 1976. So that was 4 years after you, Ronnie.
Kim Stallwood's Substack. Oh, what's a Substack?
It's kind of like a blog.
Is it? I thought it sounded a bit dodgy to me, but there we are. That's my mind, isn't it?
Probably, but I don't see how could it. Okay, explain yourself, you pervert. What are you talking about?
I don't know. It just sounds a bit, you know. Anyway, it's a type of blog, you say. So yeah.
Okay, I'll have to interrogate you off air because I don't know what. I don't know what that means at all. Anyway, we start with this bit then, which is a really interesting thing. He says the Vegan News went to 20 members in 1944. Today, the Vegan Society has thousands of members. It doesn't say how many. Do you know the membership of the Vegan Society, Ronnie?
I don't know. No. I'm sure it may be on their website, but I'm not sure.
No,
certainly more than it was in 1944, anyway.
Oh yeah, the magazine has estimated circulation of more than 15,000, but presumably not all of those will be members, I would think. And then the historical bit here, which is really good. Veganism emerged from the fringes of society when Britain fought against fascism in World War II. Looks like we're going to be doing it in the next 80 years as well, and reaches today's mainstream as the climate emergency threatens the future of life on Earth. Veganism continues to be a foundational ethic for world peace. I really like that. I really like that that Kim said that, you know, because I think it's a very important part of veganism that is often kind of lost.
Yeah.
And then this is his article that is written for the Vegan Society. It's not available online yet, but it will be eventually. So so we've got the peace thing. He also talks about open door, and of course we've been talking about that on our TikTok series, haven't we, Ronnie?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
He says that altogether 9,000 people wrote in on the basis of that, because it went out twice, didn't it?
Yes, it did. Yeah. I mean, it gave the membership of the Vegan Society a huge boost.
Yeah. Do you think it's you might just do a quick recap of what Open Door was, Ronnie?
Yes.
Go on then.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah. Well, in 1976, the Vegan Society produced a television program about themselves. So that BBC Two had this series called Open Door, where they'd allow their kind of technicians to kind of help organizations to make their own, program about, themselves and what they were doing. The Vegan Society did one in 1976. And it was
only got a couple of months' notice, didn't they, to do it?
Yeah, they didn't have very much notice to get it together, and it's on YouTube, and I think if people look up, is it the Vegan Society Open Door 1976? If people search for that, they'll find it.
I think another good place to go would be Andy Atkinson's channel.
And Andy Atkinson, Not Your Mum, Not Your Milk, has done a kind of enhanced version of it, hasn't it? It's improved the quality of the video. And when you look at it today, it's kind of it's sort of rather amusing because of the way they spoke back in those days. It's all very proper. Oh, hello, we're vegan. It's that kind of thing, And it's back in the day when I first watched it, back in when it was first broadcast, it didn't seem strange at all because that was how things were then. But nowadays, it's very different to how television programs
like the Queen's English, really, wasn't it? Kind of thing.
It was, yes, yeah. But that's that's kind of tended to be how people were. They were much more that way back then. But the information of it is still the information in that video is still very, very relevant.
Yeah, and I do have a little clip from Eva Batwin. We might not have time to play it, but we've got it if necessary. But Kim said something, Ronnie, which we said on our TikTok series, which was because he said that he rewatched it and he said he was surprised by how little the arguments for veganism had changed, which is kind of what we said, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's still very much the same. They could be saying the same thing today, really.
Yes, that was the Bland family.
The Bland family. I mean, there was a family on there with the, talking about veganism and being a vegan family with the unfortunate surname of Bland. You think they might have changed their surname?
It's a great name, but
the Spicy family or the Tasty family or something, perhaps.
Yeah, they're featured on a couple of podcasts, aren't they?
Yes, they took part in some podcasts, sort of later on.
Yeah. I think they, you might say, are environmental vegans. I don't know for sure, but
I think that's a major part of their vegans. I think they're quite focused on on the environment. Yes.
Kim goes on to say, given the internet and the fact that we've got free access to all this stuff, including all the vegans going right back to 1944. So if you go to issue, an issue is spelled ISSUU. You can get all the vegans all the way back to 1944. And
every single one up until not the very latest ones this year, but certainly up to last year. It takes a while for them to go on there, doesn't it? But
yeah, it takes a while. Yeah, well, I suppose they can't kind of damage their subscriptions by putting it up too early, I suppose. But they're all there. But he's basically saying, okay, given all this information and even this ability to, if you like, look at the evolution of veganism, through the additions and all that kind of malarkey, he's basically saying, why aren't there more vegans in the world, right now? And he, he's basically saying, well, we should be further. We should really be further ahead than we are, in a way. I suppose that's true, isn't it?
Well, I think it is. I mean, it's okay having this information available, and information's much more available these days. There's lots more of it, and it's easier to access it, because of the internet. But how many people are going to actually see it unless they're pointed to it? This is the thing. How many people are going to somewhere randomly come across that information? I mean, I know people become vegan because they randomly came across something on YouTube, but that's very few. And I think what we lack is outreach. What we lack is a proper effort by vegans to encourage the public to access that information. I think that's
getting this in early, Ronnie. So.
It's no good that information being there if people don't see it. And so
actually, Tim said something about that a little later on. He does say, this is quite funny. He says that the first published vegan recipe in the Vegan was number 2, so it was number 6 if you take into 7 if you take into account the Vegan News, right? And he says it's Mrs. O'Brien's rice pudding recipe was the first one, and apparently they were complaining that there was that it didn't develop a skin like the dairy ones.
Oh. And
I remember when I was a kid, I used to hate the skin. I don't know about
so did I.
Yeah.
So did I hate it. Yeah.
Because they even said they are putting a peel out in the Vegan. Can anybody remedy the discrepancy that there's no skin?
It's crazy. You've got a rice pudding there. You've got rice pudding there that kind of doesn't involve the slaughter and suffering of like farmed animals, and yet people are worried that it hasn't got a skin on it. So same today, isn't it? Really, same today.
Yeah, people find something to complain about, don't they?
Yeah.
We always say, don't we? We love it when you see on Facebook somebody going, "Oh, my supermarket's rubbish. We've only got 4 types of soy milk," and you just think,
I know, yeah. When you remember when they had no types of soy milk.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's right. Now this is where he gets a bit more serious now, because he says between the years 1948 to 1954, because the vegan went through. In fact, you can see it. Well, hang on a minute. Let me put it back on the screen so people can see it. You can see that there's lots of different versions of it, different colors and all that, and this.
Yeah.
And they had a different strap line. From 48 to 54, the strap line was advocating living without exploitation. Now, that is very close to the 1945 statement by Donald Watson that, veganism, or the object of the vegan society, was, the opposition of the exploitation of sentient life. And it's also very close to the kind of things that Leslie Cross would say.
Yeah.
So it's quite interesting that, 1954 is the date of Leslie Cross's final philosophical essay, right? And then it started to change, and they started putting a lot more kind of welfareism and that into the thing. And as we found with our TikTok thing, by the time we get into the very late 50s and the 60s, there's a heck of a lot of, welfare language.
Yes.
And we've been speculating about why that is, haven't we?
That's right. And I was going to say, if people kind of are interested in this and they want to kind of listen to the discussions we've had about the history of the vegan side, and indeed, I suppose, history of veganism. Once again, those are on Andy Atkinson's Not Your Mum, Not Your Milk YouTube channel, aren't they? There's quite a few episodes now about the history, about vegan history. If people are, interested in delving into that, that's where to find the recordings.
Yeah, Joanna is raising the question: how come they suddenly? I'm not sure about suddenly, but certainly in terms of when Cross was writing, it was the strongest part of their claims making. And they talk about exploitation, use and all this kind of stuff. But Cross would talk about love and things like that, and compassion and all that. But you got a full mixed bag type of thing. But then once it kind of fades away, which is, I mean, I said on TikTok that I think the reason for it is the fact that they're starting to become a bit more professional, but also they're starting to grow and become influential within the movement, and other groups are taking notice of them, sending them stuff, being interviewed by them and interviewing them and all this kind of stuff. But most of these were animal welfare groups. So I think they just kind of slid into it in the way that, if you like, the new welfare movement has done that as well. Because Kim goes on and said, well, look, one of the reasons why veganism, kind of strengthened and changed a little bit was the 1970s. So he says this is the advent of the animal rights movement, so-called. And he said also it was a time when the Vegan Society concentrated on breaking a few of the stereotypes of veganism. And he did say, for example, that vegans were just people who ate brown rice and wore open-toed sandals, which often would have been leather as well, which would have been weird, right? And so he says all that this change of this kind of thing came up in the 70s when Peter Singer started writing, for example, which is the mid-70s. And that seemed as the birth of the animal rights movement, although Peter Singer wasn't an animal rightist. So there's the kind of philosophical kind of confusion that exists even now started then, I think.
Yes. I mean, I think it changed when a lot more kind of animal rights campaigners became vegan, because they tended to be more, I suppose you could say, kind of old. I mean, talk about really young people, late teens, early 20s, in those days, involved in various forms of activism like hunt saboteurs and, anti-vivisection protests, Animal Liberation Front and those things. People got involved in those things and rubbed shoulders with vegans who were already involved, and then those people in turn became vegan. And they were kind of very much like just ordinary people. So they weren't into any kind of other weird and wonderful stuff like kind of, some of the earlier vegans had been. And I think so that, that had a big influence in kind of moving it away from the kind of, open-toed sandal image, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Just letting Linda answer that. Yeah, Andy Atkinson, a vegan film writer, poet, and archivist. I was going to say anarchist, but it's archivist. So.
I'm an archivist by Sex Pistols.
Jennifer's talking about the time when you were. Well, this is quite a new advent for Jennifer. She's not talking about your bum. At least,
no. I went to a vegan garden party. When I first became vegan, they invited me to a garden party down in Netherhead. I think they invited every vegan in the country because there weren't that many of us, and they were confident that they wouldn't be kind of overwhelmed with guests. And I kind of it was very strange because the first thing I came across this, when I walked into the house, was a guy hanging upside down from a beam. And I shook hands with him, and he was hanging upside down, and he explained he was hanging upside down from the beam so that blood would go to his brain and it would help nourish his brain, and that it's something everyone should do for a period of time every day. So you had these people that were in kind of into these weird, and another guy had loads of overcoats on, even though it was a hot summer's day, and that was to preserve his aura around his body, and it was all this kind of weird, kind of strange. Although the number of vegans these days that are into conspiracy theories and other weird shit, we've still got it, haven't we?
Yeah, it's not as though things are
it's
that
not as though
different,
that's kind of, there's been a renaissance of that, I think, caused by people having more time to kind of, let their minds wander during the COVID. I think that's caused that. It's,
So have a listen to this then, because Kim said the 70s is a time when the vegans started to break the stereotypes about them. But then he goes, so all these young people come into the movement, and they were wearing black, they were sabbing hunts, they were protesting against fur, and they lived on sauce mix. So it seems to me that he's just made another stereotype to me.
Well, yeah, in a sense, it kind of was a stereotype. See, sauce mix was a I mean, basically what happened was, I think in the late 60s, there's a guy called Peter Roberts, who was a dairy farmer, and he started having pangs of conscience, especially over sending the male calves off for slaughter. And he decided to give up his dairy farm, and he started Compassion World Farming. And he also started a company called Direct Foods, who kind of developed sort of like textured vegetable protein, which was like soya chunks and soya mince. So we still have stuff like that today. And then they went on to develop a product called Sosmix, which was like a kind of sausage, a vegan friendly sausage mix, wasn't it? Sosmix, not very healthy.
Yeah, it was a dry thing with like little.
It was dry, and you mixed it. You mixed. There's one called Burger Mix. You make burgers out of as well. I didn't think that's quite as nice. The Sosmix, you kind of, you mixed it in water.
I think Sosmix was. I tell you, the healthiest version of that. We started doing this at Christmas, right? You would make all of it into like a brick shape, right? And you'd use a certain amount of water, but then you'd use chopped tomatoes to give it some more kind of liquid. But then you'd just put it in the oven with potatoes around, like roast potatoes, and then all those fat little kind of like there were little kind of bits of
little
fat.
Nodules of hardened vegetable fat.
But they kind of just drained out. And then that was what cooked the.
That was a good way of doing it, because normally you'd fry it, wouldn't you? You'd fry it in oil, so you had a double dose of fat. You had the fat that was in it, and the fat that you fried it in as well. So it was not particularly healthy meal. But I mean, I had some friends who renamed their house, some vegan friends, into Hunt Labs and all that, and they renamed their house Sosmix Lodge because they ate so much Sosmix. It was like a really the earliest vegan junk food, really.
They called it Sosmix Blockage.
Yes, yeah.
Well, since you mentioned soya chunks, I'm gonna repeat my ridiculous and not very good TikTok joke that I said, which was somebody goes into a health food shop and says soya chunks, and the guy said, "You shouldn't have been looking."
Or soya mince is the other one. Maybe you shouldn't have been looking then either.
No. He then goes on. This is Kim still talks about the 1980s peak that we experienced, and he also says that in technical terms, the digital revolution sorted out the photograph problem. In fact, I don't know whether you got involved that much with it, Ronnie, but there was a real kind of big argument going on within the vegan community about photographs.
Yeah, it was a kind of sort of utilitarian type argument in that I think at one time all photo film, because you had film in the camera and then you had to have it developed and all that, it kind of take it to the chemist and get it developed and pick your photos up a few days later. And so you had to be very careful what photos you took, because the chemist would see the photos, see. But anyway, you maybe sell them.
I thought you'd like to comment on this. Vegan cheese, even 25 years ago, made my eyes water. I mean, we used to make it, didn't we? It was
So because of that, there's a lot of vegans. I mean, I've got very, very few photos from those days because we didn't want that, because the photo film contained gelatin. I think eventually Fuji bought one out that didn't contain gelatin. I think it contained something that came from seaweed instead. But that was later on.
Fuji Films, that was.
Fuji Films. But later on, that was later on. But like in the early days, you couldn't. So there was this debate going on. Yeah, I know that the photos contain gelatin, but if we can take photos and use them to further the cause of animal liberation, then surely that's kind of justified. That justifies,
Yeah,
using
utilitarian argument. Yeah,
that kind of debate and discussion going on. But I mean, thankfully, that problem's now been solved by the digital age, hasn't it?
yeah. I don't know whether this is true, but I was told that was one of the reasons why Kathleen Janaway split away from the Vegan Society, because of the gelatin stuff. But I don't know if it's true or not, but it could be.
It may have been because, I mean, what happened was because the Vegan, the magazine, became a lot more zazzy, didn't it? And it had photos in, and it was like, and there were some people, within the Vegan Society, some of the people that had been leading lights in the society weren't happy with this kind of change of course in the society, and they split away and formed an organisation called Movement for Compassionate Living, didn't they?
That's it, yeah.
Which carried on very much with the old ways of how the Vegan Society had been. Their magazine was just was kind of just printed and just had drawings in, didn't it? Rather than
line drawings.
It was very
right,
yeah, line drawings and stuff. Yeah.
You seen this, Ronnie? Jennifer doesn't get my joke. So
Which one?
Yeah, kind of goes into
saw your chunks.
Yeah, saw your chunks. You should have been looking. Like saw your chunk. Oh well, I didn't say.
What about nowadays you'd be able to say saw your sausage, wouldn't you?
So, yeah, that's what you would.
Yeah.
You'd be able to say all kinds of things. Saw your burger. Right, let's not go there.
So now, before we go through all the soya products,
we take it too far.
Yeah.
So where Kim goes is 1990, and that's when the trademark started. I actually didn't know it was that late, actually, 1990, which is interesting. And he says there's now 70,000 products which have got the Vegan Society trademark on it. One weird paradox, apparently, is the fact that the Vegetarian Society have got a vegan.
They do, yeah.
And there is a rumor that the vegetarian is more strict than the vegan one. I don't know whether that's true or not. But
I don't know what the requirements are of the trademark, but I do know that the majority of people these days employed by the Vegan Society are to do with the trademark and certifying products to carry the trademark. That most of their staff work on that.
Yeah, they got 60 staff, is that right? 60.
They got a large number of staff. Yeah, you can go on their website and see all the people that work for them on there, and really few of them are involved in any kind of campaigning. They're all to do with the trademark thing, or most of them.
Okay. Oh, well, that says something. Then we get 1994, although Kim doesn't mention this, funny enough, in the article, and that's when Louise Wallace starts World Vegan Day, and so it's relevant to us really because we were going to do this last week, weren't we? Which would have been the last week of World Vegan Month. But
yes.
So we've gone through another World Vegan Month, Ronnie, without World Veganism, unfortunately.
Well, we've got to hope that there will be a World Vegan Month when we will have World Vegan. Well, when we talk about World Veganism, you see, it's kind of, I'm not sure how I feel about that term because I can't really see a world where every single person is philosophically vegan. So therefore, we wouldn't have a vegan world. I think what we can have is a vegan controlled world where the people that are kind of call the shots and are in charge of things and,
You mean a plant-based world controlled by vegans?
Yeah. A world where vegans run the show and other people just kind of go along with it because, like most people go along with things, don't they? I think that's realistically the best we can hope for. But I think that'd be okay in terms of our fellow animals and them not being oppressed and exploited. That would still work.
So what Kim does is he goes all the way back to 44 to come forward. Now this is, I found this the most interesting bit and the most interesting talking point for me at least, because he said, okay, well, let's think, what did Watson mean by this ripening up thing that he said in 1944, right? So that was the very first vegan news. And he says that, people, we've got to be careful with evolution. It can be progressive, it could be regressive. You've got to be careful about it. And this is all to do with what the vegan society then started talking about the moral evolution of humanity, this kind of stuff. And so he says, so what did it mean about ripening up? Now, it means vegan education, because he says, surely Watson is referring to the challenge of informing and persuading people to embrace veganism, see that it's easy, whatever that means, and he says, making it attractive to a mainstream audience. Now, that last bit is alarm bells for me, Ronnie, because moving forward for 80 years, and the world is going more right wing, are we going to try and make veganism attractive to this? You know, there's growing fascism in the world. There's more right-leaning people in the movement. Is that what it's about?
Well, veganism is a philosophy, isn't it? And so the idea of kind of sort of making it attractive by kind of, oh, there's all these nice new food products that you can eat and all these things that you can get much more than in the past that's suitable for vegans and all that. That isn't to do with veganism. Fundamentally, it's not to do with the philosophy. You know, what we have to do is educate and encourage people to adopt the philosophy of veganism, you know, to become opposed to, you know, well, really to all exploitation and oppression. I mean, obviously focusing on the exploitation of our fellow animals, but that is the message, that is the kind of education that we've got to kind of instill in other people. And that's kind of how that is to do with making it attractive. I don't understand. I think the idea of having a world where we end exploitation and oppression is massively attractive. It's hugely attractive, and I think to get people to aspire to that and to live according to that, yeah, if we can get that across to people, yeah, that's attractive. But that's, you know, it's all to do with the philosophy.
Yeah, I know that, but the thing that worries me is this idea of making things attractive to the mainstream. So does that mean that we're in the business of trying to mold veganism to be attractive to the people as they are, or are we going to put out our vision of the world, you know, non-exploitation, non-violence and all that kind of stuff, and hope that they would adopt that and they would change?
Yeah, we got to mold the mainstream. We don't mold veganism to the mainstream. We mold the mainstream to veganism. It's that way around.
The answer to that, Ronnie, is that's harder, and we won't be able to do it.
Well, to be quite honest, we've never really tried it. It's never been properly tried. You know, the amount of outreach that's done, in terms of, you know, educating people about veganism is tiny compared with the potential with how it could be, and I think really massive strides have been made. And when you think of the early days of the vegan society, I mean, you know, the handful of people that the magazine went out to, for instance, and compare that with how things are now, and look at the, you know, realistically the amount of outreach there's been. We've come a very, very long way with a comparatively small amount of outreach compared with what it could be. You see, so I think that's the thing, and I think really what we need is, you know, a lot more vegans to become involved in spreading the vegan message. There's only vegans that can do it.
Yeah,
and that's key to it. That's key to it. That's key to everything. It's never been, you know, it's never really been properly tried at all.
No, well, I mean, Kim goes on to say something again, which to me is a bit worrying, because he says, in the future, when veganism starts to grow and lots of different people come in, there's going to be more and more confusion about what veganism means. He said the confusion about what veganism means will grow as the movement grows, which in some senses is exactly what's happening right now. But I mean, that's obviously something that we've got to do something about, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, we do something about that by, I mean, obviously it's really important to educate non-vegans to become vegan, but I think it's also important to educate people who consider themselves to be vegan about what veganism really means. You know, the concept of in-reach. We talk about outreach, reaching out to non-vegans, but there's also in-reach where you you reach inward to people who identify as vegans, to to educate them about the true meaning of veganism.
Yeah, I found that a little bit worrying, because he did say, we're going to have to be careful, because there'll be a big push again, as there is, to limit the idea of veganism to dietary things. And we've got a lot of that going on in the movement. We've got a heck of a lot of that going on in the media, and we've got the lead up to Christmas. Everybody talks about food. Then we're going to have Veganuary. Everybody's going to be talking about food. And so, we shouldn't really have months of the year when we're trying to crowbar the philosophy of veganism into veganism. That shouldn't be the way it goes, the way I see it.
I think Veganuary is to do with New Year's resolutions, isn't it? But and kind of what you hope is people dip their toe in the water and then go further, and then they go properly vegan and and remain vegan, and that's kind of, I think, what's to be.
Oh yeah, I mean, I wasn't having a go at Veganuary, but it does put the focus on food, doesn't it?
Yes, that's right. And I think the thing is, it's kind of in line. The problem is, we live within within the politics of neoliberalism. That the market, the market is supreme, and what's important is making more and more profit, or certain people to make more and more profit, corporations to make more and more profit. And it's kind of, it's not in their interests to push the philosophy of veganism. It's in their interest to push vegan products, because as long as people consume, they don't care, and they can accommodate that. And we've seen dairy companies producing plant milks. In fact, I think it's very hard to find a plant milk in a supermarket that's not produced by a dairy company or a subsidiary of a dairy company. And then you've got all these companies that are involved in horrendous meat production. Companies like Frey Bentos, companies like Richmond's, the sausage company, and all that, producing plant-based products that are suitable for vegans, because their interest is making money. Their interest is in people consuming, and as long as people consume, they can adapt what they produce to meet the demands of the consumer. So they want people to consume, so therefore it suits their purpose for it to be all about food, all about I mean, obviously, yes, I mean, yeah, we do have to consume food, we do have to eat, but in terms of what we consume and the amount we consume, I think that's still that's kind of still relevant. And we have to remember there's a huge amount of food wastage goes on, and particularly at Christmas, and most of that it comes from people's homes, where people buy too much and aren't able to eat it. And the whole of consumer society is a problem. It's not just food; it's all other items as well. And so, if veganism is just it's kind of quantified as a diet, it's no threat to corporate interests. But as soon as the philosophy kicks in, it is a threat, because consumerism is counter to vegan philosophy, because consumerism harms all life on Earth, and particularly the lives of our fellow animals, because it leads to fundamentally the destruction of natural habitats, to pollution, because all whatever we consume has to come from somewhere, and ultimately impacts on the natural world through extraction, through land being taken up for producing things, growing stuff, etc. And so that is actually counter to the consumerism, is counter to the vegan philosophy fundamentally. So these people don't want veganism to be seen as a philosophy. They're quite happy for it to be seen just as a diet, because they can still make lots of profit out of that.
Yeah, well, that's something we've got to be careful about, of course. Actually, I want to ask you, before we move on into our games room, Ronnie, I want to ask you a movement question, and it's related to vegan education and the time of year. And you know, you see a lot of people putting out stuff about eating turkeys or turkey flesh nowadays. It's kind of like, in a weird way, too late right now in December, because obviously the turkeys have already been bred and killed, and they're in the morgues of the supermarkets already, right?
Yeah.
And so I always wondered, because I remember Animal Aid always had a big focus on turkeys and Christmas and everything, and I was thinking it's kind of too late. But then there's another issue about the fact that in society, which is deeply speciesist, people. I was having a really interesting conversation with somebody today about this. You know, people are getting themselves ready for the Christmas party and all the rest of it, and you know, they're buying the dead bodies, and they're buying the tested cosmetics and the leather goods and all the rest of it. And then along comes the vegans in December. It's almost like it makes you wonder whether December is a time when vegans can do anything without just pissing people off.
I think you know, with Christmas, I mean we run a local campaign focused on Christmas and you know, promoting veganism at Christmas. So we start the campaign in October. You know, try and start it at the beginning of October, because you know, there are people that, you know, start planning for Christmas really early. I mean, there are people that kind of, you know, leave all their Christmas shopping to the last week, and so, you know, giving vegan stuff out about Christmas even now, you know, for some people it isn't too late. But ideally, you know, that campaign would be started a lot earlier. And I think the thing is, yes, it's true that you know, the turkeys that are going to be consumed at Christmas are slaughtered, you know, some while before Christmas. But I think, you know, that if people, that the you know, the amount of the amount of what's produced one year will probably be based on kind of what was kind of sold the previous year. So, you know, even people not having turkey this year, even though the turkeys have already been killed, may impact on next year. And obviously, you know, getting people to go vegan for Christmas, so to speak. What you want, you don't want them just to go vegan for Christmas. I mean, it's not possible to go, you know, in a sense, because it's adopted in a philosophy. We get people, if we get the idea, get people, kind of attract people's attention by talking about the turkeys, and those people go vegan, then, you know, what's to be hoped is that they'll kind of, you know, they won't consume animal products ever again. It won't just be Christmas, and that they'll adopt the philosophy of veganism.
Yeah. Now, hang on a second. do you want to tackle this one, or what? Do you think that veganism is only about non-human animals, or is it about humans as well?
I think it's, well, you know, there's certainly evidence from the founders of the vegan movement. It's about humans as well. I mean, Donald Watson, for instance, said that veganism is opposed to the exploitation of all sentient life. He didn't just refer to fellow animals. All sentient life would include humans as well. And I think even if we kind of go along with sort of veganism being opposed to the exploitation of other animals, the exploitation of our fellow animals, it's kind of it's not possible to adopt that philosophy in a sense without being opposed also to the exploitation of one group of humans by another group of humans, because otherwise it's inconsistent, isn't it? It's inconsistent to be opposed to the exploitation of other animals by humans without being opposed to the exploitation of humans by humans, and indeed without being opposed to the oppression of, you know, each of those groups as well.
Well, I always think that one of the fundamental planks of veganism as set out by the people who started the vegan movement was about the moral evolution of humanity. And but we've also got to put that into, you know, to bring a bit of sociology into it, maybe, or social movement stuff. We are a social movement, and we are a social movement which is populated by human beings. Our fellow animals don't organize themselves into a social movement. We do that. They are the subjects of it. So, you know, in that sense, the pioneers of the movement cared about humanity. They thought that if we sorted ourselves out and become less violent, it's going to solve a lot of issues right across the board, to the extent that people like Janaway said that a vegan values should end human poverty and should end warfare and everything, which is true when you think about it. I mean, like, a vegan world is not going to be buying weapons, right?
Well, even if we were only concerned about our fellow animals, we weren't concerned about other humans. The first, you know, one of the first things we'd have to end is warfare, because modern warfare, you know, the main victims in terms of numbers of modern warfare aren't humans. They're other animals. There's far more non-human animals killed in warfare these days than humans. And so, just from that point of view, even if people didn't really care about the humans that are blown up by bombs and rockets and all that, you know, if they were only concerned about the animals, then we'd have to.
Well, are you saying there's going to be a lot of vegans like that? Then that the reason they
I would hope not. I would hope not, because it's kind of inconsistent, kind of not to be opposed to humans being blown. I mean, it's increasingly civilians as well, isn't it? With modern warfare, with high explosive being used, it's civilians that are the main human victims, is not the military.
Yeah, all these drones and everything, they're pretty.
Yeah,
scary.
all of that. I mean, it's just absolutely horrendous. I mean, the vegan position on all wars that are going on at the moment, wherever they are, the vegan position on all wars is to call for an immediate ceasefire in all wars. That is the only tangible vegan position on with all wars. And there are quite a number of wars going on. I mean, it's not just, you know, we hear about Gaza and we hear about Ukraine, but you know, there's quite a few others going on as well that we don't hear so much about.
Right, we're going to move on to our games area. So what this is, well, do you want to introduce what this is, Ronnie?
Well, the Vegan Society have launched a new campaign called The Future is Vegan, and it's about it's to do with the 80th anniversary of the Vegan Society, because it's looking forward to what veganism could be like, hopefully, in 80 years' time, in another 80 years. And as part of the campaign, they've produced a sort of interactive, I suppose it's, I wouldn't call it a game, but it's an interactive experience where people can navigate a future vegan world, and can kind of see various aspects of it, and they've got an avatar of Donald Watson, talking about the various aspects of that, and putting forward all the various reasons for veganism, or certainly for adopting the vegan diet. And so it's something. It's kind of really, though. I kind of found that it can only really be properly navigated if you've got a desktop computer with a good processor. It's not possible to do it on a smartphone or a tablet, and I struggled to do it on my laptop, because I don't think I've got enough processing power. So I think it's limited in. Sadly, I think it's limited in that respect. That it won't make it available to everyone. But never think it's good experience for those that can experience it.
Well, let's give people a bit of a taster for it, because obviously another thing that occurred to me as soon as I saw it was that the graphics are not anywhere near modern day gaming. So I imagine for a younger audience that might itself be a problem. But presumably that would have been much more expensive to produce.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I would think that's probably the reason why.
I mean, I'd have liked to have been produced in a form that would have been accessible from a smartphone, because that's what most people use these days. I think there are quite a lot of people who don't have computers; they just use their smartphone for everything. And so
is yours a modern day one? I mean, is it up to date, Ronnie, or?
No, none of my stuff's up to date because it's all I get.
Oh, well, that might be the reason then.
I get all my stuff second hand for two reasons. First of all, because of cost, and secondly, to be more eco-friendly, and thirdly, because I don't kind of really need high-tech things for the stuff I do. I think if people do need it, if they're producing high-quality videos and that, then they probably need more up-to-date and more powerful stuff. But because a lot of people, but smartphones are, even though it's up-to-date, smartphones are kind of limited in processing power anyway. And I think even the most up-to-date ones probably wouldn't be able to kind of view this properly or view it at all. I think it's only it's actually publicized as something that you need to watch on a desktop. So they're obviously taking that into account in terms of processing power. And I think that's a shame in a way, because it limits its accessibility.
Yeah, it actually says that on the site then, does it?
It says that on there on the site, yeah.
Okay. Well, let's give people a taster so we can have a bit of fun here, people. So comment away. So this is what, where are we going to go? Talk to Donald. So we need to, we were messing before. So
yes,
let's restart. All right. So this is what it looks like. This is the opening section. And then it goes into this, which tells you about the controls. So I imagine if you got one of those kind of joysticks, your gaming joysticks, that would probably be the easiest way to navigate this, I would think.
Yeah,
Hello.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
My name is Donald Watson, and I was one of the key founders of the Vegan Society in 1944. I'm going to be your guide around this future vegan world, which is what we believe we can create for the benefit of all humankind, animals, and our beautiful planet. If you've ever wondered what would happen to formerly farmed animals, or how our environment could change for the better, this is your chance to explore our interactive world and find out.
Right, so that's the opening bit. And in fact, that kind of addresses that question. We can create for the benefit of all humankind, our fellow animals, and our beautiful planet. I would tend to reorder that, but keep that in there like that. Ronnie, what about you?
Well, the main beneficiaries of vegan world, or certainly a vegan run world, would be our fellow animals, because not having that world means that they are, in terms of numbers, the major victims, doesn't it? And in terms of degree, very often as well, of the suffering and killing they undergo. So they would be the major. It's our fellow animals would be the major beneficiaries, but humans would be hugely beneficial to humans as well, of course.
Somebody's just dive bombed into my water. We were talking about the voice that they've used. Now, Donald Watson is a Yorkshire person like myself. I think he was born in Mexborough, and he was obviously middle class. He was a teacher and all that. So I think that probably is fairly authentic in terms of the voice.
Yeah, I'm wondering if there are any recordings of Donald's voice that they maybe used to kind of, as a template.
Well, there is that Donald Watson archive project now going on. There's 3 sociologists, including Kate Stewart and Matthew Cole. There was a third one, Irish Crane, but I think she's been replaced by somebody else. I'm not quite sure now. But yeah, it's an interesting question. So this is how we get in. Okay, so again, we've got this thing about we're in the wrong place, really, in a way. So let's turn around and get back to where we're supposed to be, I think. Okay, so this is what the thing looks like.
In a vegan world, we would expect to see cleaner rivers with more fish and pond life, since they are no longer polluted with animal waste from farming. By using less water for animal agriculture, we are also protected from dangerous droughts and can feel more secure about having enough water in the future. In our oceans, biodiversity loss is largely a consequence of commercial fishing, which is also a huge driver of pollution. Bottom trawling is a common method of commercial fishing, which involves dragging heavy nets across the ocean floor to catch fish, damaging our coral, and catching other species as well.
Right, so we're not going to play all of this because
it's very. I mean,
there's loads of them, isn't there? There's loads
what
of
Donald says all the different bits that he says are hugely informative, and in some ways that's the best bit of it. I think is kind of is the information that that he kind of he spreads through through speaking.
Here's a question though: have you ever had your bottom trolled, Ronnie?
Not that I remember. I'm yet to experience that, I think.
Right. Okay.
Perhaps it should be on my bucket list.
Yeah, we'll leave that for now. So the thing about the world they've created, and so we're coming round to this this pin, this white pin, and that gives you kind of an indication that to follow it, right? But there's also another bit which we'll probably see next, unless it's this one now. Is that with the? This might be the one with the
artificially breeding and farming animals on a large scale can never be sustainable because of the amount of food and water the animals consume, the required space to house them, and the amount of waste they produce throughout their lives. In our world, we're able to grow abundant fruits, vegetables, nuts, cereals, beans, and grains, enough for everybody to eat a healthy diet using much less land and energy than we currently do.
Right. Okay. So this is the what's this? This is the greenhouse area, Ronnie. You still there, Ronnie?
Yeah. Oh yes. I'm watching
okay.
intently.
Oh, I see. Right.
Yeah.
I thought you'd frozen.
No, not yet. It's not quite that cold.
Yeah. Aha. Yeah, but actually, I was just thinking, Ronnie, that and it was your idea entirely to name this show "Still Alive." I mean, that is going to bite us on the bum one day, isn't it?
Well, maybe so. Yeah. I mean, hopefully later rather than sooner.
Oh yeah. So here we go. So then you've got aubergines there. You can see. Next one is beetroot. So they're basically just saying how interesting that they didn't kind of explore vertical farming in this.
No. There's a few methods of food production they didn't explore. One method is the use of what's the name of it? Where they use bacterial fermentation as a means of producing oils and protein. I think that could be a really big thing in the future.
This is
definitely
a George Monbiot thing, isn't it?
It's something George. People interested in it. If they need to search for a website called Reboot Food. I think it's rebootfood.org. I think, and that's that's all about it. And it could free up a massive amount of land to be rewilded, because we'd no longer have to grow. Well, obviously, animal farming, would be out the window in terms of producing protein if that could be produced by bacterial fermentation, but also oil. So it means that there'd be no need to grow palm oil or rapeseed oil or any of these things, and so all that land would be freed up because it far less land is required for that process than it is for growing crops.
Yeah, Deb's asking what is called this yolk.
If you go to the Vegan Society website, vegansociety.com, and it's called and I think click on campaigns, and it's called The Future is Vegan.
All right, okay. And this was directly a result of the 80 years, really, wasn't it?
I think so. I think it's something they're working on, as a special project because of the 80-year anniversary.
Right. Okay.
And I think it's a great idea. I mean, it's another way of spreading the vegan message, and it's kind of, I think, in any way that we can do it is good. And I think, this is something that will appeal to some people. And I think, people will become.
I still can't see youngsters going here?
I think that it's kind of difficult to say. I mean, they might, they may take an interest in it. There are people that this will be their route into veganism for some people. I'm quite sure. And I think it's a positive thing in that that aspect. I think it's a pity that it can't be accessed on like on a mobile device. I mean,
there's a bit of jeopardy, isn't there? There's a couple of rivers, and you kept getting drowned in the sea, didn't you, Ronnie?
I kept because my laptop, because I don't think the processor's powerful enough. I ended up right at the coast and couldn't get away, and I had to restart the program all over again to escape from the cliff tops.
Now this is a bit that I've not seen before, Ronnie. So let's have a look.
It's interesting.
Click to interact. Okay.
Back in my day, we relied on printed resources and word of mouth to spread the message. Now technology has enabled people all over the world to access information about the reasons to go vegan and how to do so. The Vegan Society will carry on my legacy of making sure people have the education and resources they need to go and stay vegan. I hope by seeing for yourself the benefits a vegan world would bring, you now feel inspired to take the first steps to helping us create this compassionate future. By living in accordance with your values and supporting others to do the same, we can all play a vital role in creating a healthier, greener, and kinder world for.
Yeah, I've not seen that bit before. Have you, Ronnie?
No, I didn't see that either. No.
So I see there was a bit of a glitch in the thing because he said vegan, didn't he?
Yeah, because I suppose it's been is it being produced by AI? All of it, and maybe that's why there was a couple of glitches.
Like, TikTok was like that for a while. It kept saying vegan. All right, got a honeybee there. I'm not quite sure where I am now, so give me a moment. Yeah, I still think that the one drawback is that kids are not going to like this. It's going to be kind of glitchy for them,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm not into like.
Well, no, I'm not.
Computer games, but I think they probably are a lot more kind of flashy than this, and they're sort of more sophisticated, aren't they, with the graphics and stuff? But I suppose it depends on.
Whoa.
You have to have like a very powerful graphics card, don't you, to play these modern games, and it may be only gamers that have got those. And so, if it was only gamers that could watch this, then it's not going to go out to a very wide audience, is it? I think that's a.
No. Now we had a look at this, Ronnie, because there's a hare. There is a hedgehog somewhere I saw.
Yeah, there's different, and a fox.
Sonic the Hedgehog. Got Wildlife Valley. Let's have a look down there, shall we?
Did you know the food system accounts for around 60% of all biodiversity loss alone? And one of the biggest problems is land being cleared for livestock grazing or to grow crops for animal consumption. Right.
So did we play that one before, or is that new?
No, I think that's new.
Honeybees, Devil's Bit, something. Okay. I don't have green fingers, so right, we're back here again. So now this is where we kind of crashed into these, Ronnie.
Yes.
And Donald appeared again.
He did, yes.
Many people have grown up to believe that animal products like meat and milk are essential to a healthy diet. However, a well-planned plant-based diet involves eating plenty of whole grains, fruit, nuts, vegetables, and legumes, such as kidney beans, chickpeas, and red split lentils, some of which you can see growing in our farm of the future. It can be an affordable way to feed you and your family, ensuring everyone gets the nutrition they need.
Well, here's a question from that, Ronnie. It's very whole foods, this. There's no mention of processed foods and Beyond Burgers and all the rest of it and everything.
No, and I'd love that to be the way. I'd love that to be the way, because we want people to be healthy. I mean, I want vegans to be healthy. I want vegans now to be healthy, because if we want vegans to spread the vegan message, we need healthy vegans to do that. Well, first of all, so they got the energy and health to do it, and secondly, so that they present a good image to non-vegans. And I do worry about the prevalence of vegan junk food, and I think I think it'd be great to get back to people making more stuff from basic ingredients, rather like we did, back in the day, I suppose, before the Sosmix came on the scene.
Yeah, well, it's definitely true that the anti-vegans, they tend to think that that's all we live on, this vegan junk food, don't they? They think
well, you see, because I think a lot of the anti-vegans, loads of people that aren't vegan live on junk food. Which is really why the vegan junk food has arisen, to tempt those people to eat in, to eat in vegan-friendly junk food instead of the junk food containing animal products. That's what it's all about, isn't it? And so they themselves are junk food consumers, so they'll just presume that vegans eat vegan junk food, I suppose.
What did you make? I mean, this is a couple of years ago now, but when all the the vegan meats ended up in the the fast food places, McDonald's and Macdeath's and Murder King and all that shit, right? A lot of the activists were very supportive of it, weren't they? To the extent that they were making videos, of them kind of jumping away.
Yeah, I think you have to look at these things on different levels. That if someone's already going into McDonald's and they eat it's called the McPlant, is it? McDonald's vegan-friendly burger.
Have you ever had one?
No. I only go in McDonald's for a McPiss. I don't go in for food.
A Mac cement bag.
Yeah, that's it.
Mm.
I've not had one, and nor do I have any desire to sit in that place at all whatsoever.
So that's a generational difference amongst vegans.
Yeah, well, you see, the thing is, it's in accordance with vegan ethics, because it's to do with, we kind of exercise our power of ethical choice, don't we? When we decide, when we say, like, we're going to eat the vegan-friendly product instead of the one containing animal products, and it's the same thing. If you have a choice between eating in McDonald's or eating in a vegan cafe, or even eating in a kind of family-run cafe that's got vegan options, that's the more ethical option, isn't it, than eating in McDonald's? And isn't that what vegans should choose according to vegan principles? You see, so that's why I've never been in McDonald's, because there's never just a McDonald's, is there? There's always somewhere else you can go and get a vegan option these days. So that's why I've never gone in there for food. But
we're back to that issue of the mainstream. If you
well, you see, the thing is that it's moving forward. It's kind of really about moving forward, people forward along an ethical, along an ethical road, I suppose. And the thing is, people that go in McDonald's now, you've got a whole generation that used to go in McDonald's. I remember when there was no McDonald's. I remember when the first burger bars came to this country, and they were Wimpy bars. Remember when there were never any burger bars when I was growing up at all. Then Wimpy's came, and then McDonald's came later. I think I might have had a burger in a Wimpy bar, like before I became.
Wimpy was a character in Popeye as well, wasn't he?
May have been, yeah. But
Popeye the vegan with the
well, he ate spinach, didn't he? A load of spinach.
Right, yeah.
But the thing about, if people are already going in McDonald's and they swap the the meat burger for the McPlant, for the vegan friendly burger, then obviously that's great. That's a step in the right direction. If those people actually decide to become vegan, properly ethically vegan, then that's even better, a lot better. But really, what you want to do is encourage those people to continue along that ethical path, and to no longer eat in McDonald's at all, and to support the local vegan place, local vegan eatery, if they can, or certainly support places that are not as ethically sort of compromised as McDonald's is, you know. And so that's what you're kind of, but that's it. It's so once again you're talking about inReach, aren't you? With those people.
Did you see that squiggle lighting up?
I didn't know.
Yeah. I don't know why they've done that. It's quite weird. Right, so we get into the bridge then, Ronnie. Shall we go over that, or we haven't done the cow one though, have we?
I don't know where that is. Yeah, because this was something I found a little bit strange. There's a kind of sanctuary, I think, for, you know, what we now would call farmed animals, although they're no longer farmed animals in the vegan world, but, you know, ones that are now.
You want to try and find that then? Go back a bit.
Yeah, I'm not sure where that.
That's usually the first bit that you get to, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's my fault for breaking all the rules.
You're going in the wrong direction now, aren't you?
Yeah, but it's off here. It's somewhere off here.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah, it would be good to see that. Good to see that bit.
There's a fox.
Yeah, there's a fox.
Right, now then, let's have a quick look this way. See what that says.
There's something off to that way, isn't there? What does that say?
Oh, that's it. I think this is it. I think.
You might be wondering what happens to previously farmed animals in a vegan world. With no demand from humans, 1.2 trillion, yes, trillion animals are no longer bred into lives of suffering to be killed for food each year. This number often surprises people, as the scale of the animal industry is hidden from view in industrial farms. You can find out more about how animals will live here.
Yeah, I think when you got this learn more, that's when you got some questions, I think. Yeah, you see that?
Yeah, and you can see here they've got these kind of sort of ex-farmed animals on a sanctuary, haven't they? But you see, how would it be that things would develop and what would happen in 80 years' time if we did have a vegan run world? Is that really would how many of animals like that would there be anymore? Because they just wouldn't be bred, would they? They wouldn't be bred. So obviously, you know, there would be some rescued and they'd be in sanctuaries for a period of time.
That creates a moral dilemma, Ronnie. I mean, that means that you actually prevent them from breeding.
Well, yes, and it depends whether, you know, what I suppose it depends on what decision people would make, you know, because the thing is you have to prevent them from breeding to some extent, don't you? Otherwise you'd be overwhelmed, you say. So there has to be some
animal companions, isn't it? I mean, it's,
yeah, that's right. So you know,
on the face of it, that is a rights violation, but that's an interesting moral dilemma, really.
Yes, it's a kind of lesser of two evils, isn't it? That we're sort of faced with and you know, through a situation not created by ourselves.
Right, now, do we go back this way to get to the breaking the rules again?
I don't know.
Okay, I'm trying to find the bridge again, Ronnie. Is that just down? What's that one?
You've got something coming up now.
Better environment. Oh, there's the yoke over there. Look, right, okay. Here we go. Right, now this is the trickiest bit. You've got to line.
You've got to line it up, and I wasn't able to do that on my computer at all. I never got across the bridge.
I know. I'm a bridge person, so
yeah.
Here we go. Boom. Now, what does that say there?
The most impactful thing an individual can do to reduce their impact on the environment is to avoid all animal products. Why? Because the production of meat and other animal-derived products places a heavy and unnecessary burden on the environment. Here, we'll show you all the ways that a plant-based food system would benefit our climate, reduce pollution, and clean up our rivers.
Yeah, you see, there is quite a lot, isn't there, about the benefits to humans again in this.
So, well, yes. Yeah, I
Because
mean,
it's all entangled, you know. I mean, like if you clean up the rivers, it's going to be good for the fishes. It's going to be good for us.
well, yes, of course, and obviously the the biggest crisis, or certainly kind of one of the biggest crises we face. I think there's three major crises that we face at the moment. One's the climate crisis. The second one is the threat of nuclear war, and the third one is the threat of another pandemic. And all of those things would be ended in all those threats would come to an end in a vegan run world, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
And so in fact, I think here when Donald talks about the contribution of animal farming to the climate crisis, I think it's maybe a little bit of an understatement, because I think there's a lot of evidence it makes more of a contribution than even he says.
Want me to click on those or
Yeah.
but beforehand, what about this? Did you see anything? I haven't seen anything to do with fishes, but did you, Ronnie?
Yes, there was mention. There was mention about about fishing and
Because you kept diving into the sea, Ronnie.
not just about the fish, not just about the fishes, but it was about the harm to the oceans caused by by trawling, for instance. That was on earlier, wasn't it?
Oh, we found that, didn't we?
Destruction of the coral reefs and all that. That is in there,
Oh,
because
okay.
of course fishes are the main, overwhelmingly the main victims of the human consumption of animal products, isn't it? Something like 14 times more fishes and other sea living animals are killed for human consumption than land animals. It's
Yeah, we're talking
hugely
in the trillions, and as we know,
in
when you talk
trillions.
about trillions and billions and millions, these words are almost like unfathomable to get your head around. You kind of, It doesn't.
Yeah.
You know, if you say, "Oh, there's 3 trillion this," what does that mean to anybody?
Well, it kind of doesn't, and I think humans are wired, or many humans are wired to kind of sort of think in an individualistic way. In other words, if you tell the story of like one fish, like one animal on a farm, and the plight of those those beings, that often makes more of an impact than talking about billions and trillions, doesn't it?
Yeah, Eddie Izzard had a sketch once, and he said that somebody kills somebody, you go, "That's really bad, lock him up forever," kind of thing. And then they, some serial killer kills 10 people, lock him up and throw away the key. But then you've got some dictator who kills 5,000 people, and you kind of go, "Oh, well done," because
Well,
you don't know what to say. Yeah,
the worst killers get continually voted into political office, don't they? Putin, Biden, Trump, all of them. I mean, the deaths that they're responsible, with their kind of war machines and
don't
their
forget
weapons.
Mr. Starmer.
And Starmer, yeah, Starmer exactly the same. They're all, they're all mass. They're all guilty of like mass murder. All these people, right? They've not done it themselves, but they've kind of encouraged it, promoted it. Their policies have caused it.
Yeah, but I mean, it's the vegan argument that we're always saying, oh, they go, "Oh, well, I didn't do it," and you go, "But you're paying for it." It's the same argument.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. And yet, they continue. And the only way that we're going to stop people like that being continued voted into office is to educate more people to become vegan, according to what veganism truly means.
Indeed. Let's click on this.
Did you know agriculture is a big contributor to the world's greenhouse gas emissions, up to 1/3 of them? The majority of this comes from livestock farming, and it's estimated that animal products alone account for up to 83% of the emissions caused by EU diets. We can see that our precious world has begun to mitigate the effects of climate change, because one big emitter of the very powerful greenhouse gas methane, livestock, has been removed. The fact that we have much more land covered in trees and plants globally also helps us by absorbing carbon dioxide from the air. We have been able to mitigate or even prevent the worst impacts of climate change, resulting in a stabilized climate, reduced bad weather events like droughts, floods, and wildfires, and food security for all.
I wish they wouldn't have used industry terms like livestock.
Yes, they could just use farmed animals, couldn't they? Or animals
like
used for.
Did you know 11 times greater fossil energy is required to produce animal protein than plant protein for human consumption? This is because livestock farming requires.
So, Ronnie, I mean, obviously, this is like vegan education points and stuff.
Yeah.
Now, who do you think they're expecting to tune into this thing?
Well, I think they're just hoping that it will kind of attract people's interest. It's just something that might attract some people that wouldn't be attracted by other things. And they're also going to do these kind of sort of road shows where they take round the kind of virtual reality goggles for people to view it in, which would probably then be kind of 3D, wouldn't it? And probably a even more interesting experience.
Oh, actually, that's probably the main part of it, really. And this is just for vegans to have a look at, isn't it?
Yeah. So I'm also wondering whether it can be made available, because there's a lot of these goggles about. I mean, like I know sort of We the Free use them, for instance, and there was or is it Animal?
Well, the VIP, the VIP have got one.
Yeah, you can get them. And so
got two.
If this was made available for people to show on those goggles, you see, because at the moment, basically, what's shown on those goggles is people are inside a factory farm, and they're shown the negativity of the existing situation, whereas this shows the
future, isn't it? Yeah,
positivity of vegan world. So that if this could be made available, people to show on those goggles, maybe some of them would as well.
Yeah, the only issue about that is that if you were, I mean, because I said VIP have got one of the goggles, and Declan Vigo, he's got two sets. Don't know if they're still working, but if we could put that on there, it's kind of like you can't really imagine putting people onto one of those and they're going to spend 20 minutes.
No, it's the length of it, because these ones
takes a long time to get around, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's the difficulty with it. It's kind of, and all of the information can't really be condensed into anything very much shorter, can it? Whereas the ones that show what it's like in a factory farm or whatever, they only last for a few minutes, don't they?
Well, maybe they could do, maybe what they're planning on doing is the headset one. There's not going to be as much traveling, so
it may be that. So it's kind of like quite a quick experience. But
we were trying to work this out, weren't we, Ronnie? The fact that it almost seems as though this is unfinished. It's like
you need some furniture
like
in there, don't you?
Shuttlecraft, isn't it?
Yeah, you need some more furniture in there in that cabin, don't you?
I tell you, it's a shuttlecraft, but there's nothing else. So should we go back to Earth? I think we've probably done that, but all right, returning to Earth. Well, that'll be a first for us, Ronnie, if we return to Earth. So,
yes. I think I'll stay in space, to be honest.
So overall, are you impressed by that, or?
I think it's positive. I think it's kind of there are a few concerns. I think that the main concern I've got is that it's going to be difficult for a lot of people to access it on the equipment that they've kind of got. I think that's one of the difficulties. If it's only limited to people with desktop computers, and probably it'd have to be a fairly up-to-date desktop computer, because an older desktop computer probably wouldn't have the processing power. So you're immediately like restricting your audience, aren't you, when you do that? Because I haven't got a desktop computer. Most people I know that have got computers have got laptops. They've not got desktops. For instance, if a laptop's not going to be powerful enough, then and so I think that's that's to me that's a problem. That's a restriction with it. I think overall it's another tool that's something else out there that that can educate people to become vegan. So I think in that sense it's positive.
Yeah, just answering Deb there. Yeah, it's they use a program called Unity to produce this, apparently. That's what
Yeah,
Andy was
yeah.
telling us. So
Yeah. I think all these things are.
Hey, Alan, hello there. Happy birthday, mate.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are people who will become vegan because of this, and I think there's little doubt, providing it's like disseminated, widely enough. If it's only on the Vegan Society website, that means people have got to be like attracted to that in the first place, and information has to be given to people to get them to do that, and that's the.
So you don't need to be a member to watch it, though, do you?
You don't need to be a member. No, anyone can access the website and watch it,
Yeah.
but people have to know to kind of know that it's there, don't they? It has to be promoted, and the Vegan Society got a campaign at the moment encouraging their members to promote it on social media. So hopefully that will reach a lot of non-vegans, and some of them will watch it.
Okay, so we're a little bit hope. I think I'd say I'm hopeful, but I've got doubts.
Well, I think there's also the case of. I mean, one major thing that wasn't shown in the what would you call it? The experience, I suppose, is a town. It's like there's no, apart from, like, I think there's one or two houses in the middle of nowhere, like in sort of within the landscape, but there was no. It didn't show a town or a city.
Yeah, and there was no solar panels or anything like that either, was there?
No. You see, and I think the other thing, because obviously the other major contributor to the climate crisis is the burning of fossil fuels, and I think a vegan-run world would very rapidly do something about that, because that's that has a hugely negative impact on all life on Earth, and so it wouldn't that problem would be solved as well. It wouldn't be just the problem of animal farming. It would be all these things that negatively impact life on Earth that are vegan.
Is your position that humans should stop digging into the Earth completely then?
I think we have to absolutely minimize what we extract from from the Earth. Whether it's possible to kind of absolutely stop it, I don't know. But I mean, so so much stuff is kind of discarded, isn't it? The idea of kind of repairing and reusing stuff, mending things, that's very much gone out the window, hasn't it? And everything's just made to be thrown away.
Yeah, there's that. Yeah.
And so if that ethic, if that was, the ethic was to kind of, the whole idea of like humans treading lightly on the Earth in completely across the board in all aspects of human activity, we attempt to minimize our adverse impacts on the planet. That's what we need to be doing, and that is totally in line with the vegan ethic. And that's to do with the production of energy. It would be to do with transport. It would also be to do with food production. It would be to do with our numbers, our population. I think we have to considerably reduce the human population for our presence on this planet to be fair and just in terms of the other animals that share it with us. There's all these different areas where we need to look at minimizing human impacts, and obviously food production is a huge one. As we've seen from the the figures in the that we just we just listened to.
Well, I think myself that's one of the differences, another vegan generation thing, because you mentioned compassionate world farming earlier, and you just mentioned this thing about stepping lightly on the Earth, and they used to have a T-shirt with that on it. I don't know if you remember it.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I'm not quite sure that modern day vegans really care about that. They'll defend transatlantic flights and
you see the thing is that if you sort of and the other one, there's a quote from Gandhi: live simply so that others may simply live. And by others, I'm quite sure that means all sentient life on Earth. It doesn't just refer to humans. And I think that's a very that's a very, very good quote as well. But I think the thing is, if you have to ask these people, like, why are you vegan, or why do you consider yourself vegan? What why is it that you don't consume animal products? And the answer is likely to be, well, because I care about the animals. I don't want animals to be slaughtered. I don't want animals to be made to suffer. Other animals be made to suffer. That's my reason for.
Yeah, but the main reason they're going to say is they don't like animal cruelty. We're in a
Well, you see, yeah, but the thing is,
welfare movement, aren't we?
Yeah, but then I'd say, well, why don't you like animal cruelty? And they say, well, I don't like, animals to suffer. And I'd say, well, do you think, what are you opposed to the slaughter of animals for food? Oh, yes, I am. They would be. So I'd say, well, so if you're concerned about other animals not being killed, if you're concerned about other animals not being made to suffer, what about the other ways in which that occurs? What about the forest fires that are attributable to the climate crisis? Do you care about that? And are you going to try to reduce your involvement in that in the same way as you don't want to be involved, in the oppression of farmed animals? And because you don't want to be involved in that, that's why you don't consume animal products. But so shouldn't you be turning your attention to ways in which you can not be involved in these other ways that other animals are oppressed? And that would include, in a very simple way of not being involved in that, of reducing our contribution to that, is not to fly in an aeroplane. And why do you want to go halfway around the world to have a holiday when you can go to, there's loads of beauty spots just in this country you can go to, and it's a lot cheaper and a lot less stressful as well.
To do with the weather, Ronnie.
Well, the weather now is all over the place, but there's places down the road from where I am that are beautiful. We've got a forest, just a few miles away, a lovely forest that we can go to and just come home the same day, and to me, so why would I want to go halfway around the world when I can go down the road and come back home and sleep in my own bed, and it's a lot cheaper and less stressful? I don't understand. It's like crazy, isn't it? It's crazy that people want to kind of
but
go.
We're back to this issue of mainstream. For example, I've been plagued by these adverts about you get all your holiday pictures and you send them off to this thing and they'll make a booklet for you, right, and all that kind of stuff. And it's got Italy and Spain or whatever and all that. And this is predicated on the fact that people are constantly flying around the world.
Yeah.
And if you go to one of those apps which tell you about the planes, I mean, somebody was saying, something like 17,000 planes above the USA at any given time or something, if not more. And so, we've got this massive thing, and like vegans don't want to be outside of that mainstream, and they probably say, well, we've got to make veganism appeal to that mainstream.
Then
back to what Kim was saying.
But then it's no longer veganism. Then it's no longer really according to vegan principles. If we're doing things we don't have to do that are causing the suffering and deaths of our fellow animals, surely it's not in accordance with vegan principles to do those things, whatever they are. And it's just that I think it's kind of I think we just need people to think more deeply about these things and to make the connection. Because I think the thing is, because it's so much easier these days to kind of live as a vegan. In other words, back in the day when I first became vegan, it was you couldn't eat out anywhere. Very few places you could go. You could sit down and have a meal that was like.
But that's not a good thing, is it, Ronnie?
No, it's not a good thing at all. And it's great that there are all these places now, and it's great that you can you can buy. I mean, you can always buy food suitable for vegans because there's always been vegetables, there's always been pulses and nuts and fruit and all those things. But the kind of more the more processed products. I mean, most bread we couldn't eat back in the day. Most bread wasn't even suitable for vegetarians. It contained animal fat back then. So it's more difficult. And I think that meant that we weren't able to be part of mainstream because it was so difficult to live as a vegan that set us apart from society anyway. As soon as we decided to become vegan, right, that's you out of society. You can't fit in. And I wasn't bothered with fitting in. I think.
Yeah. Okay. So let's do, for the last few minutes then, let's do this kind of looking forward thing, because are we gonna do the kind of Melanie Joy Cartel thing, Tobias Leonhardt, the idea that the future of veganism requires that we lower the bar of entry into veganism. So we allow the products, like fishes and eggs, every now and again, and this kind of stuff. So we kind of loosen off in terms of the definition. We redefine it. I mean, make it really kind of vegetarianism at best kind of thing. But I mean, Leonhardt would even, he's talking about a symbiotic relationship between us and chickens. So, and this kind of stuff, we provide the shelter and the food, they provide the eggs and all this kind of stuff. It's a symbiotic relationship. Is that a way of, as Kim said, making veganism attractive to the mainstream?
But it's not veganism, is it? That isn't
veganism.
No,
but the point, that's why they want to change veganism.
Yeah, well then don't call it veganism.
That's my position. But they were saying no, we want to call this new thing veganism.
No, well, it's not,
make veganism bigger.
Because to define what veganism is and what it should be, you have to go back to the people that coined the phrase. You can't just change it. You can't just say make it whatever you want to make it.
You say that, but people are changing it all the time.
They do, but it's whether that's just justified and appropriate and acceptable. It's obviously not.
I mean, don't forget, Ronnie. A lot of people would say that the vegan society has changed it, and in fact, they would say that film that we've just watched, or that game, or whatever you want to call it, that experience, is a betrayal of what veganism is, because they would go back, as we know, to one or two sentences within Leslie Cross, and that's veganism for them, which is also.
Right. But you have to take into account the other things that Leslie Cross said and what Donald Watson said and what the other founders said, rather than just like one sentence, I think. But things flow from that one sentence, don't they? That's it's what's consistent with that as well as what that actually says. Anything that involves the exploitation of other animals it just isn't vegan. It just isn't, because it's counter to the what the original definition was. And so having backyard chickens, you're gonna where are they going to come from? Who's going to breed them?
Okay, Ronnie, let's move with the times. That was then, this is now. So we make veganism attractive to the mainstream, and we do that by bringing our standards down. I mean, that's the argument that's going on.
What you've got to do is make them get the mainstream attracted to veganism. It's that way round. In other words, what we have to do is put much more effort into going out and educating people to become vegan, so that what we've got to do is educate people to look at the world in a completely different way to what they look at it now. That's what we've got to do. And I think we can do it, providing enough vegans become involved in that process. And the problem we've got is that isn't happening. That most people consider themselves vegan aren't active in spreading the vegan message, or they're not doing their best to spread the vegan message. And we've got so many more people who identify as vegans now than we had back in the day.
Yeah, but Ronnie, basically what that means, feeding off from what Kim said, is that okay, let's get all these vegans out there doing the street work that you want, but everyone's got a different version of what veganism is. And
it's very difficult. Well, I mean, to some extent, yes, I think that's right. But then, that's where basically it's kind of, I see it as kind of as getting people into a classroom in a sense, in that you kind of, yeah, you know, somebody may consider themselves to be vegan and not have totally the correct idea of what veganism is, but at least it's brought them into an area where they can be further educated. It's brought them into the classroom, and then they can be subject to inreach then to educate
they'd
them.
say, oh yeah, but according to you, Ronnie Lee, whereas you go,
Well,
oh
yes,
no, according to the pioneers.
but all we can do, but you see, somebody that consumes animal products would say, well, according to you, you know, we should be vegan, but I don't agree with it. But that doesn't stop us from doing outreach. And it's the same, isn't it? If we're wanting to educate people about what veganism really is, there'll be some people that disagree with that in the same way as there's some people that kind of disagree with veganism, but that doesn't stop us from doing that.
I think we've been challenged to debate George. I mean we've done that, haven't we? Anyway, I mean, you were on a panel with George. Wasn't I on the same one?
Yeah, we did. Well, I had a discussion with George about the thing about right wing.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
right. But it kind of we sort of we kind of didn't really meet because I was talking very much about right wing economics, and he was talking about like the social aspect of of right and left. And I was talking about
that's right. What it is, the problem is that he's got a very shallow understanding of what intersectionality is. Always reduces it to party politics. He kind of like talks about the British Labour Party as though that's left wing, and it's not. He talks about the Democrats in the USA as though that's left wing, and it's not. And so it's very difficult to have a conversation because really intersectionality is about values. It's not about party politics. And so that's one problem, talking to him about that kind of stuff. Anyway, this ain't the place to go for that, I don't suppose, Ronnie, but
you see, I think I think we could talk a bit about like what wasn't covered in the Vegan Society's campaign, or certainly in that interactive experience, and that is what do we foresee it being like actually in towns and in cities? How are they? We saw the greenhouses, and we saw we saw the free living beings, and we saw there were some ex-farmed animals in the sanctuary there, and all those things. We didn't see a place of like human habitation really, apart from there was like one house on there somewhere, wasn't there? Or there is, or one or two. So how would we foresee how in a vegan controlled society, in a society that operated according to vegan principles, what would towns and cities be like? I think that's important. And I see them as much more integration between people's living areas and the natural world. In other words, that you've kind of got this kind of separation, haven't you? You've got this huge separation between different landscapes, haven't you? You've got cities, and okay, like you do have some trees in cities. You do have some people who have kind of nature friendly gardens or wildlife friendly gardens, so to speak. But it's kind of mostly bricks and concrete. And then you have the fields, which are kind of huge monocultures, don't you? Vast areas for growing things. And then you have a few sort of wooded areas, and there's this separation between all of it. They're like all in big chunks. Whereas I'd like to see something which was much more integrated. In other words, we had a huge push to have people have let gardens return to nature, or to for people to grow their own vegetables. I think we need to, where we grow crops in order to be more friendly to nature. This has to be done in smaller areas, with a lot more hedgerows, a lot more trees everywhere, a lot more trees, within towns and cities, a lot more, areas given over to nature. So you kind of, and then where you're doing the cultivation, it's not done in this vast swathes of fields and that, but smaller areas where you've got woodland and forest all around it. And we kind of didn't really see that in the sort of in the vegan society's production, did we? It was kind of there were trees, but there wasn't a massive number of them. And like we need really a world where the area of land that's forested needs to be massively greater than what we've got now.
Yeah, but I mean, it's only just showing us really a little small holding, really, isn't it? So
yeah, it's kind of, yeah, and I think that's kind of how we, to me, that's how I'd like to see things in a kind of in a vegan friendly society, I would say, and that's got what we kind of, in order to maximize, the thriving of the natural world, so to speak. And the other animals that live with it, and better for humans as well. I mean, we came from the forest, didn't we? Like we were going back how many tens of thousands of years or whatever it was. The evolution of humans. I mean, we originated, I think, as like forest animals. I think that's we kind of have to kind of go back to that. That mainly we live within wooded areas, I think.
No, this is very Kathleen Jenner way, isn't it? What you're saying?
Yeah. And I think she was right.
And is that going to be attractive to the mainstream?
Well, we what you've got to do, you see, we have to educate the mainstream so they understand why that's a good idea. That's our task. That's our task. If you educate people to become vegan and to think in a way that's consistent with veganism, then they're going to want a world that's kind of that's much more like that. That's much more given over to nature, much more, because basically, what we have is an occupation of the world, of the earth, by the human species. We don't inhabit the earth; we occupy it. In other words, if we inhabited the earth, it would be in harmony. And it would be in a situation of fairness and justice towards the other animals that also live here. But we don't do that. We're imperialists. We set up I talk about the human Reich. I mean, Reich just means empire, but it kind of sounds worse because people always think about the Nazis. But it's like, we're an occupying force on the earth. We don't live in harmony with the other animals. We don't live in a way that's fair and just to them. And that's what we've got. That's what we've got to do. That's what we've kind of got. We kind of have to be we sort of have to withdraw, from our occupation. We have to kind of we have to live in a way that's much more harmonious, that allows nature to thrive, and for these animals, the free living beings, to regain their homelands that we've taken. Because you look at a city. That is land. That is an occupation. That's an area of occupation by humans. That was once the homeland of free living beings that's been seized and occupied by humans. Right? And okay, we have to live somewhere, but we could live in a situation where free living beings are much more integrated into that situation. By having lots of natural areas interspersed within cities and within towns, and a lot more, and then we've got.
Well, look at that. I mean, I expected this response. So you're romanticizing the primitive. It's primitivism.
It's not. It's not the primitive, because we can't go back. What I'm looking at is a situation that's fair and just in terms of the other sentient beings that we share this planet with, and what we have to do in order to create a situation that's fair and just. It's not about romanticism. It's not about being romantic. It's about wanting justice, and fairness, and for humans to no longer be oppressors of other animals. And I think we have to go a lot further than most people consider themselves vegan. Don't understand how radical the changes are that we need to make in order to create a world that's fair and just to the other animals that share it with us. It's not just a question of swapping an ordinary sausage for a vegan-friendly sausage. It's not.
No, but I mean that raises the question, Ronnie. Leave society aside for a second. Is that kind of movement of compassion in world farming kind of vision even sellable within the modern vegan community?
Well, we make it sellable. You make it sellable by encouraging people to think, and by encouraging people to be consistent. People that consider themselves to be vegan, identify as vegans, already believe certain things, already want certain things, which is why they become vegan, or they consider they become vegan. So what you do is you educate them to understand what's consistent with that and what's inconsistent with that, and take them further along the ethical path. And that's what we need to do within veganism, and obviously outside of veganism, in terms of educating non-vegans to become vegan. It's all to do with education. It's all to do with education, that you seize on something someone believes already, and you extend that. You kind of, you get them to understand, that they're doing other things that are inconsistent with that belief that they kind of hold very dearly. You believe it's wrong, for other animals to be slaughtered for food, but what about all these other ways in which other animals are caused to perish and to suffer because of human activity? Surely, to be consistent, you need to be opposed to those two, and you need to act accordingly. It's all about people being consistent, isn't it? In a sense, and I think that's what we need to do in terms of education. And I think the other thing is transport. We need to think very seriously about our transportation systems. We have a situation where, well, hundreds of thousands, even millions, if we take birds into account, of our fellow animals that are killed on our roads by vehicles driven by humans, that roads that have been driven through the territory of those other animals, the same way as we've built our cities on their territory. So we've driven
Ronnie,
our roads.
how are you going to avoid this charge that this is primitivism? You want to go back?
No, it's not primitivism. It's kind of, it's thinking on a higher level, isn't it? It's kind of this is progress. We can't go back to the past, and it isn't primitivism either. In that there are certain technologies that we can employ in the furtherance of this. Like I talked earlier about bacterial fermentation as a way of minimizing the amount of land that we need to produce protein, that we need to produce oils and fats. See, that's using like a highly evolved technology in order to create a situation that's more fair and just towards other animals, because it means that more land can be freed up for their habitat. So it's combining. It's just looking at all the various means that we can use to absolutely minimize our our oppression of our fellow beings.
Well, I'm with you on that, Ronnie. Do you? I mean, I know you're into vertical farming. You're into this fermentation ideas and everything. Are you kind of thinking of the future? Another 80 years of veganism, you're going to have things like electric planes, which are being talked about now, or we need to abolish airports, or what?
Electric planes are still going to still be subject to bird strike, aren't they? So like electric cars are going to kill animals on the road. It's exactly the same.
But Ronnie, this is the thing. How can you sell a vision of the future with no cars and planes?
Well, we just have to. We have to. If we're really concerned about human impacts on other animals, we have to think about what if we have if we have vegans running things, we're going to think about those things, aren't we? That's going to be within our consideration. And so we're gonna think about
but
the
that raises
transport.
the question: if vegans go to the electorate with those values, how are they ever going to get elected?
Because you, in order to get, if we want the right people elected, you've got to change ordinary people, because it's ordinary people who are the voters. It's ordinary people who are the electorate. And so therefore this is where vegan education comes in. This is why, if we're going to have a vegan run administration that's going to put a lot of these these things into place, the only way you're going to get that is by creating more vegans, because who's going to vote these, where are those politicians going to come from, and who's going to vote for them? So this is why, vegan education, we're not going to get any of this. We're not going to get any of this, or anywhere near this, anywhere near what's, what the vegan society is showing, or anywhere near the things I've said, unless we educate far more people to become vegan. And it's only vegans that can do that. And that's why I'm always encouraging, other vegans to become involved in education, because if they want to see a vegan world, or certainly, a world that's operates according to vegan principles, that's not going to happen unless a lot more people become vegan. And the only way a lot more people become vegan is through more vegans becoming involved in outreach. So we've got people that want to see a certain world, but aren't doing anything, or certainly aren't doing nearly enough to bring that world into being.
Well, Dad said that minimization isn't the same as primitivism.
No, it's not. No, it's not. I mean, there are certain conditions that existed back in those days that I'd like to see again. Like there were far more forests, that people lived in, maybe in woodland clearings and things like that. There were certain conditions that I'd like to see return. But that isn't going back to something. We can only go forward. It's going forward to something, isn't it?
Yeah, I just see modern day people who are used to transatlantic flights and everything. They're listening to you and they're thinking about New York and Dubai, and then their next holiday in Sydney or something, and it sounds less than what they want.
Well, but I think the thing is, if those people are educated to become vegan, then hopefully they'll think about those things in a different way, and they'll see how those activities adversely impact on other animals. It's not just about food. I mean, the food is a huge thing. I think probably the worst thing, if you said what is the very worst thing that humans do in terms of the adverse impact on other life on the planet,
it's eat food.
It's consuming animal products. That is the very worst thing. So if we just kind of had unity on that, that in itself is a huge thing. If we could end the consumption of animal products by humans, that would be a massive step forward, even if none of these other things happened. Because that's in terms of the number of animals that's reared, the number of animals that's slaughtered, and not forgetting the fishes, because they're by far the greatest number. And in terms of the adverse impact on the natural world, the climate crisis, the pollution.
Okay, let's finish off with this point then, Ronnie. And I do apologize if I'm putting you on the spot. You've talked about, and we've talked about veganism in 80 years' time. We've looked back 80 years. We're looking forward 80 years. What now is the next thing? What's the next 5 years for the vegan community?
I think everything is dependent on the amount of outreach that occurs. Everything is dependent on that. Even kind of, this. I can only kind of talk about what I'd like to see, and obviously that's a lot more outreach, a lot more vegans become involved in outreach, and a lot more vegans becoming instigators of outreach and organisers of outreach. Especially in their local community.
And what will you do then about Kim Stallwood's suggestion that the more people we get doing outreach, the more confused the message is, because there's going to be more people with different ideas about what veganism even is.
Well, I think the thing is that you see, I think then, I mean, basically, people are going to have different ideas about what it is, and then they're going to spread those ideas. But there's kind of there is some sort of common denominator, I think, which enables people to kind of come into a space where they can be educated further. That's all. What we need is as much outreach as possible, and as much inreach as possible, to educate people what veganism really means. That's all. That's all. That's all we can do, really. That's all we can do. And just hope that sufficient people, take the right ideas on board. No.
Okay. Follow-up question: are you optimistic or pessimistic?
I'm not either, really. I kind of don't really think in those terms. I just think about what if we are going to, achieve a world that operates according to vegan principles. What is necessary to be done in order to achieve that, and that's what I try to do, and I try to promote. And as I said, it's all dependent on the amount of outreach that's done. It's totally dependent on that. How much progress we make, or whether we make kind of any progress. Even in terms of the technologies, even in terms of, say, something like bacterial fermentation, in order to be implemented, that needs a lot of support, and obviously faces huge opposition from the animal farming industry, for instance, and from a lot of politicians as well. I mean, there are states in the USA that have banned. They banned lab meat, haven't they? Whether they also banned bacterial fermentation, they probably would, because of its threat to the, to the animal farming industry.
Yeah,
so
well, that's another problem with the incoming administration in the USA.
Yes, yeah. And
I mean, I have to admit, Ronnie, I'm pessimistic. I mean, first of all, what I see in the movement is I don't see an animal rights movement. I see an animal welfare movement. I see people talking to people about cruelty issues. That's our favorite word, which makes people then kind of like try and pick and choose between different types of animal use and everything. Whereas we want them to reject that on moral grounds and everything. Then you've got other vegan activists who are talking about, they've taken a couple of lines from Leslie Cross. So it's all about animal exploitation and nothing else, which is an issue. And so therefore, that means that your thing about cars, your thing about planes, has got nothing to do with veganism as far as they're concerned, because there's no exploitation involved.
I think all we can do is explain, as I've done already, why it's everything to do with veganism. That's all we can do, and all I can think about is like what what is the best thing I can do as an individual to try and move things forward, and to be involved in both those sides of things. The outreach, try and do as much outreach I can in my local community, and then show other people what I'm doing, and encourage and persuade them to do the same thing where they are. And like with the inreach, to kind of this show in itself has been inreach in with some of the things we've talked about, and that's kind of all. That's all I can do, and I'm just going to do that now. How successful that will be, I don't know.
You're going to do that while you're still alive, Ronnie. I'm a bit upset with Terry here.
Still alive.
He's gone to college rather than watching us think out loud.
That's terrible.
That's terrible, isn't it? I mean, where's your commitment, Terry?
Yeah, you can watch the recording anyway, Terry. No, that's good. It's good bloke, Terry.
Right. Thanks for your company, Ronnie. And
yes,
let's probably do one of these before another 3 months goes. it is interesting, kind of trying to speculate, because in that vegan thing, it did talk about the vegan utopia, and that's quite interesting, isn't it? To try and get your head around the utopian idea, and it's a little bit like all those conversations we used to have about anarchy. How do you get from here, with all the crap that goes on, to there, which is like a paradise? And we're still in the same boat trying to work that out.
Well, I think so, and I think that kind of, I think that's why I'm so strong on promoting outreach, because it's like an unless situation, that unless we create,
but that's only one arm to it, because you can't just have people doing a lot of outreach and telling people all different things about
but but then that's where the inreach comes in, isn't it? Where you're kind of saying, all right, you've got this kind of sort of hazy idea about what veganism is, which kind of puts you in a place where you're able to to learn more. It kind of gets people into the classroom, and then once they're in the classroom, you can actually teach them, educate them further.
Do you have any sympathy with the? I mean, we started off by saying that that strap line about against living without exploitation, that kind of only lasted until the mid-50s, and then there's been the creep of welfarism again. Do you have any sympathy with the activist view that even the vegan society at the moment is a betrayal of veganism, because it doesn't represent veganism in the Leslie Cross kind of way, so therefore it kind of doesn't count. They've been trying to roll back from Leslie Cross ever since about 1956 or something, and now we've got a weak definition of veganism. And so in other words, what you might think is veganism, they're going to say is not veganism at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think the vegan society could do better in quite a few ways, but have people become vegan, and are people vegan because of the vegan society? Yeah, the answer to that's yes, of course. No, and I think we kind of, there's a saying, isn't it? Don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Isn't it? I think they do good work. Yeah, it could be better, and the definition could be better. But do they do good stuff? And for me, the answer to that is yes.
I mean, obviously you got the vegan flag behind you and everything, and you were interested in the definition. Is that conversation worth opening up again
about the definition of veganism?
Yeah, because the current definition isn't the best of what we've had.
Well, I mean, I think in practical terms, if you wanted to change the definition, then the answer to that would probably be to kind of get elected to the Vegan Society's committee or whatever, and put forward a motion at their AGM, and that would be the kind of practical way of doing that.
Oh, other than that, we could flood them within reach, right?
Yeah, I mean, other than that, you kind of just point out to people why, why there may be problems with the existing definition, and why it's not totally in tune with what the founders put forward. I think that's kind of all that's the other way to do it, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, I mean that experience that we had, what that Donald Watson character was saying, is pretty much in line with what the founders would have said, I think. Pretty much.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of good stuff. I think that the Donald avatar in that interactive experience, I think there's some very good stuff. Some very good information there.
Right. Well, I think we ought to do a wrap then, Ronnie. I think that people have been very good to stay with us, so we should thank them.
For all these, all these hours, that we're
certainly for that. And there was me saying to you, "Oh, I'm not quite sure whether we'll fill an hour." Ronnie,
yeah, being worried that we'd run out of things to say. Not quite our longest show, but I think it is probably one of the longer ones, but
Yeah,
it's an
well,
interesting
I
topic.
mean,
and
we are talking about the future of veganism in the next 80 years. I mean, that's
we're
a
trying
pretty
to talk
big,
about 80 years in a couple of
yeah,
hours.
it's a
That's
pretty
not
big,
bad, really.
yeah,
You know.
it's a big thing to take on.
But
Really.
I think, I'd say to it, all vegans listening, that if, we do want a world in 80 years that's anywhere near like what we've seen, just now, then, we have to do a lot more outreach. And so I'd encourage all vegans listening to, get involved in much outreach as they can.
Yeah, but we want a future which is nothing like what we've got now, isn't it?
We want a future that's, radically different to what we've got now. But if we ever want, ideally, but like if we really want kind of any real progress at all in kind of the advancement of veganism, because what we've got to remember is that the amount of oppression of other animals in the world is increasing all the time. The consumption of animal products is increasing. The number of animals being farmed is increasing. Because the human population, for two reasons. But first of all, the human population is increasing, and secondly, you've got countries where traditionally their consumption of animal products was quite small. They've started kind of consuming more animal products, and so you've got those two things. And so we're kind of, things are still moving in the wrong direction. All right, they're kind of, if there was absolutely no vegan society and no vegan outreach and no veganism, it would be a lot worse than it is. But we're still not, we still haven't turned the tide.
I totally agree with that. I mean, there's a lot of cultural challenges that we've still got. For example, it's still the case. So eating flesh is still seen as a status symbol. Eating flesh is still seen as a masculine thing. So you've got all these kind of intertwined kind of problems still in all that. It's kind of men eating meat and all this kind of crap that we've had forever. That kind of stuff.
Absolutely. So things are getting worse, and will get even worse. Unless we have a lot more vegan outreach, and then hopefully we can turn the tide, and it'll start going the other way, and then we can move towards the something that resembles a vegan utopia, hopefully one day.
Yeah, let's have something that resembles veganism before we die, Ronnie. Well, again, thanks a lot for people tuning in. And Ronnie, we will be back, won't we? But that will depend, of course, on
if we are both still alive.